talk a lot on this show about how representation matters, but what if that representation is so deeply offensive that it's worse than not being represented at all? I'll explain in a segment called How Did We Get Here? Recently, Marvel Comics introduced a new character named Princess Matoaka. Now, if that sounds familiar, it's because Matoaka is the birth name of an indigenous woman most of us know as Pocahontas. Now, I know what you're thinking. What a great opportunity to show a historic Native woman for the complicated, resourceful, brave person that she was. Well, instead, they did this. Wow, yeah, first, that's super racist. Second, it's very confusing to literally anyone who has seen a woman in her underwear. Now, in case you're wondering if this was drawn by a man, let me point out that there are 0 bra straps and she's wearing gold pasties. And yeah, she's holding up a metal orb entirely with the strength of her breasts. Apparently, this comic is set in an alternate universe where Native women exist, but gravity does not. Now, if it's not clear to you why that character is upsetting people, let's take a minute and decolonize your understanding. Native women have been hyper-sexualized throughout American history, and the consequences have been devastating. According to the Department of Justice, Native American women are 2 to 3 times more likely than women of any other race to experience violence, stalking, or sexual assault. And that is terrifying. The only thing Native women should experience 3 times more than other races is compliments about their incredible community and nation-building skills. Dang. Good job. Good job. Now, instead of focusing on this offensive depiction of Matoaka, let's learn about the reality. Now, many of you are probably familiar with her, mostly from Disney's Pocahontas, a movie about a Native woman who falls in love with an English guy named John Smith, saves his life, has a close personal friendship with a raccoon. Of course, almost none of that turns out to be true. I mean, I'm not ruling out the raccoon part. They're adorable and they seem like great listeners. I don't know who her friends were. But in reality, Matoaka was around 10 years old when she met John Smith, and he was almost 30. So instead of this, it would have looked a bit more like this. So unlike the Disney movie, there was never any kind of romance between Matoaka and John Smith because, and this is important, ew. Also, in every portrait of John Smith, he has this facial hair. And whether it's the 1600s or 2022, I think we all would have clocked that mustache as something you don't let around young children. So, Disney was wrong about the romance and the age, although that's definitely not Disney's biggest age-related lie. I'm just gonna say it. There's no way Chip is Mrs. Potts' son. Here is what she looks like when she turns back into a human. That lady is in her late 60s, easy. Now you're telling me she hasn't kid Chip's age? What kind of secrets are you hiding in that teapot, Mrs. Potts? Now, the movie also says that Matoaka snuck food to John Smith and even risked her own life to stop her tribe from executing him, but it turns out those parts probably aren't true either. First of all, according to the indigenous site, Indian Country Today, when the colonists didn't grow enough food for themselves, John Smith actually stole food from the tribe by holding a gun to the heads of village leaders. So natives like Matoaka likely gave John Smith food in the same way that a cashier gives all his money to a guy in a ski mask. And as for Matoaka saving John Smith from execution, well, historians say that probably didn't happen either. In fact, many deny that he was going to be executed at all. That's right. Native historians have called out the lies, just like I'm going to call out anyone who thinks John Smith is hotter than Kokum. You are wrong, and I will fight you. You're wrong, and I'm going to fight you. John Smith looks like if Axe body spray was a person. He's the human embodiment of crushing a beer can on your forehead. He's the third to last guy on every season of The Bachelorette. And you know what else? John Smith's bangs are the McDonald's logo. There. That's right, I said it. So why is it that many of us have learned this incorrect history? Well, because America likes stories about Native women that make it look like they welcome Western culture and live happily ever after. The actual story of Matoaka is a devastating one. According to Native accounts, she was kidnapped, raped by colonists, and died before the age of 21. And no matter how many adorable raccoons you add, that story sucks. But it's the truth. So for just a second, let's bring back this picture. Now, the writer actually apologized for his depiction of Princess Matoaka and vowed to change the name and the design after he was called out on Twitter by native comic lovers. But I don't want to focus on the writer of that comic. I do want to talk about why it matters. Because continuing to hyper-sexualize Indigenous women in fiction can lead us to ignore their abuse in real life. According to a 2016 report from the National Institute of Justice, more than 4 out of 5 Indigenous women reported they had been the victim of violence, and 96% of them described their attacker as non-Native American. Even worse, those attackers often can't be prosecuted. That's because a 1978 Supreme Court case called Oliphant versus Suquamish Indian tribe decided tribes have limited authority to prosecute non-tribal citizens. That leaves open a legal loophole where, in some cases, non-natives can enter a reservation, commit violence, and not be held responsible, which is insane. It's like if I went to Florida and kicked a bunch of people in the shins and then I got away with it because I don't live in Florida. That's not right. I should be held accountable or I'll just keep kicking. Poor Tarek. Now, here's the thing. We as artists and consumers have to be extra careful in how we treat Native people because our country has not been. The Amber Ruffin Show was filmed on the traditional land of the Lenape peoples, past and present, and we honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it throughout the generations. It is our duty. It's our duty to make sure Indigenous women are depicted with care and integrity, and more importantly, make sure they get a chance to depict themselves. That means supporting Native women in everything from writers' rooms to boardrooms. It means donating to the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center. It means supporting positive Native representation by watching shows like Reservation Dogs and Rutherford Falls. And speaking of support, it also means making damn sure they get all the bra straps they need. This has been How Did We Get Here?